What is going on, guys? Matt Downs with Daily Grind Fantasy Sports to help give you the edge for this NBA 3-game playoff slate on DraftKings. Cannot wait to break it down. If you guys are brand new to this channel, we provide both free and paid content for all daily fantasy sports across all sports. If you could please show your support by hitting that subscribe button, notification bell, and of course smashing that like button for all of our future NBA content. If you would like to know more about becoming a better DFS player and taking down that big GPP, head over to www.patreon.com/DGFantasy for more information. Patreon subscriptions restart right now, so if you want to grab the full value of what Patreon has to offer, now is the time to do it. It's the first of the month, which is the best time to sign up. On Patreon, we give advanced cheat sheets for all DFS sports on DraftKings. These cheat sheets include updated projections, ownership, and our overall favorite plays from slate to slate. We take it a step further by teaching you how to play fantasy sports like a shark, by showing you where the best leverage spots are to put you in the best spots to take down tourneys. Also included is our private Discord chat where you get to talk over the slate with everyone, including our coaches, to help build your lineups. Now let's go ahead and dive right into this NBA 3-game playoff slate on DraftKings. But before we do that, let's go over some Patreon success from last night. We had some close takedowns, had Elite, one of our NBA coaches, get a pretty close takedown here. Won $100 and had a pretty good lineup, 271 on a low scoring night. We had some prize pick success, $275. Looks like he'll win about $500 there and $250, both the overs here for this member. We also had another close takedown here, $40 into $400. We had $12 turned into $40, $40 turned into $80, and all the way down. So if you guys want to sign up for Patreon, $20 a month gives you access to all of our leverage sheets, GPP plays, cash plays for every single major sport going forward. Once the playoffs end, we know that there's not too many sports to bet on, so we have esports, we have MLB, we have NASCAR, we have everything in between the major sports. So $20 a month gives you an overwhelming community, only $20 a month, guys, with the private Discord chat and just chatting all day every day about how to take down GPPs in these other niche sports. But let's go ahead and focus on this NBA 3-game slate as of right now. And the injury report is actually pretty good today. We have a lot of injuries kind of spread out throughout these teams. So let's go ahead and go over the injury report here real quick. With Boston, we have Kemba Walker, Robert Williams, and obviously Jaylen Brown out for the Boston Celtics. So they are on a thinner rotation here. We have some value plays to be focusing on. And they are 12-point underdogs on the road here at Brooklyn. It's now 12.5. It's actually risen since I started doing my research. Brooklyn right now without Jeff Green and Elise Johnson, so that's kind of noteworthy, and that does open up some kind of value here for Brooklyn. Switching over to the Portland-Denver game, we have Zach Collins. He's been out for Portland, so nothing really noteworthy there going on in Portland. With Denver, we have Barton and Dozier. They've also been out for quite some time, so Denver does have some value. We will go over them, and they are in a pace-up spot here, 226 over under for the Portland-Denver game. And then last but not least, the Lakers have the most slate-breaking injury news here out of the rest of these teams. Anthony Davis right now has a groin strain, I do believe. So right now he is doubtful to play. It shows questionable, but things are not trending in the right direction. Like, LeBron is gearing up to play the rest of the series by himself, and honestly for the foreseeable future. So Anthony Davis, unless there's some kind of crazy miracle, I don't think he'll play tonight. Anthony Davis, we know he usually does. He does take these injuries a lot more, I guess, cautiously than a lot of these other players. So Anthony Davis probably will sit tonight, and we are planning as though he will. And then Caldwell Pope here, also questionable, but he's leaning towards probable. I do expect Caldwell Pope to play. Last but not least are the Phoenix Suns. Nader is out, and Chris Paul is probable. The coach already tried setting him last game, but Chris Paul said, heck no, we're going to be playing full strength. He did play 32 minutes last game, so we'll expect him to be playing about 32 plus minutes in this contest against the Lakers. They are tied in a 2-2 series, so they're going to need all the superstar power that they can get from these two teams. I hope Anthony Davis gets back, but if he doesn't, then look out for a lot of LeBron James and the scary playoff LeBron James. All right, let's go game by game, team by team. Let's start out with the Celtics. As we know, they are without Jaylen Brown Robert Williams, and also Kemba Walker. So that does quite a bit to the usage chart of the Boston Celtics. If we actually take a review of their usage chart, Jason Tatum, with obviously no surprise here, 36.1% usage rate, the highest on the team, 1.4 fantasy points per minute. Next in line is going to be Tremont Waters, and then it's everybody else in that low 20% usage range. So Jason Tatum should have the ball in his hands a majority of this game. He's averaging 1.4 fantasy points per minute, and when you convert that to his price tag, he's a 10K price tag and comes out to a 5.7 point per dollar value. Definitely not bad. A lot of upside if they can keep this game close. Now, the big thing we have to be paying attention to in this game is blowout potential. That's why I consider anything over 12 points a blowout. 231.5 over under. There's no surprise here that it's going to be a high scoring affair, but are the Nets going to be the ones only scoring the points is the big question. So right now, Boston Celtics projected to score 110 points, which isn't bad, but we need this game to stay close for any one of these superstars to really pay off their price tag, including Jason Tatum. Peyton Pritchard, not a superstar here. 3.2K, projected 25 minutes, is by far my favorite value play on the slate. When you take a look at the usage board here for Pritchard averages 1.02 fantasy points per minute with these guys off the court, which is actually pretty respectable. So 3.2K, I think he's the most obvious play on the slate, and I think he will garner a decent amount of ownership, and is an 8 point per dollar value, so by far the highest on the slate. Some GPP options are going to include Tristan Thompson here, 27 projected minutes, 5.5K, and he's also averaging just over a fantasy point per minute, 1.1 fantasy points per minute to be exact. Comes out to a 29.7 fantasy point projection and a 5.4 point per dollar value. And then the rest of these guys are just going to be dart throws, like Marcus Smart at 6.5K. That's very overpriced. He does get a benefit in usage rate, but he really has to be scoring the ball, and like I said, this game has to stay close for that price tag to make sense. Same exact thing for Evan Fournier. He's only averaging 0.86 fantasy points per minute with these guys off the court. Comes out to a 4.9 point per dollar value, and these price tags really just don't make sense. Another decent option here is Romeo Langford. If he does get 25 minutes, then yes, 3.3K. On the surface does look very, very cheap, but he's definitely not as productive as Peyton Pritchard at 3.2K. I think Romeo Langford only averages 0.65 fantasy points per minute on the court, which is substantially lower than Peyton Pritchard's fantasy point per minute output. So, love Peyton Pritchard. I do like Jason Tatum and GBPs, assuming he can keep it close, and for TJ's sake, I really hope they do, and I hope they can force another game here out of the Brooklyn Nets. All right, switching over to the Brooklyn Nets, I actually have a lot of love for these guys in GPPs as a whole, for reasons that we just stated. If this game does stay close, then these price tags just don't really make sense to me. Kyrie Irving at an 8.8K price tag, anything below 9K doesn't make any sense. With Jeff Green and Elise Johnson, and also throwing Karis LeVert in there off the court, in 823 minutes of sample size, he averages 1.31 fantasy points per minute. That is pretty respectable for 40 minutes. If this game can remain competitive, this is what he did in the last game, 63.75 points, and I love him for GPPs. Joe Harris, also not that bad of an option, 5.1K if this game does stay competitive. I know you guys get it. I'm just trying to drill it into your head. The main assumption is this game going to stay competitive? If it does, love everybody on the court here. Kevin Durant, also not that bad, 5.5K price tag. Bruce Brown, 3.5K, 21 minutes though. Averages close to 0.8 fantasy points per minute. Comes out to a 5.5 point per dollar value. And then like the rest of these guys, yes, you can make a case for them. James Harden, I just don't love this price tag, 10.6K. And as you guys can see, games are staying close, and he just goes ballistic. So love all these guys here in close contests, but my favorite option is going to be Kyrie Irving, and I personally probably will play him just because of his ownership. His ownership will be fairly low. Unfortunately, we don't have ownership projections for you, but that's something else you can grab if you go over to patreon.com/DGFantasy. Also, Blake Griffin at 4.2K, projected 20 minutes, is also showing a 5.2 point per dollar value. Then the rest of these guys just don't have too much interest, and just because of their minute upside there in Brooklyn. Going down the list here with Portland, nothing too substantial here pops off the sheet. Nurkic will carry ownership just because 7.1K is still criminal. The big question for me is, can he stay out of foul trouble? Because if he can, he's still averaging 1.31 fantasy points per minute with just Zach Collins off the court, and he's projected 32 plus minutes. They're going to need him versus Jokic, and I love that price tag in general, but can he stay out of foul trouble? Don't know. If he can, love him. Robert Covington next on the list here, 4.8K, did smash value his past 2 contests finally, averages only 0.78 fantasy points per minute, but his price tag is very, very appealing, comes out to a 5.9 point per dollar value. I don't think he'll be as chalky going forward just because of this price increase, but I still do like him for value if you're looking for a last piece in cash. CJ McCollum, Damian Lillard, Carmelo Anthony, Norman Powell, all these guys will show sub like 20% ownership here on this 3-game slate, which makes absolutely no sense. I love these guys for GPPs, and the Portland Trailblazers just continue to be disrespected in terms of DFS and just the public as they view them in the series here versus Denver. Switching over to Denver, I have less interest just in this team in general, and just the least amount of interest as a whole. If we look at the price tags, like 10.4K for Jokic is just like a safe option. He only played 27 minutes last game, so you kind of throw that out of the way here. 59, 56, and 58 fantasy points. Like, you know what you're going to get from Jokic assuming he plays his full amount of minutes. He is projected 35, and you can expect about 50 to 60 points from him. Nothing too sexy there from that pick, and I think he's going to continue to see about 20 to 30% ownership just because he is a safer play. The rest of these guys just don't intrigue me. Like Michael Porter Jr. at 7K, he averages 1.08 fantasy points per minute. Just nothing really stands out for me here from Michael Porter Jr. Has been really struggling here in the playoffs. All these guys are just going to be GPP options for me here from the Denver Nuggets. Last but not least, we have to talk about these Lakers. Lakers are without AD, probably will be, and that just means LeBron James is going to carry a ton of ownership. Not only that, if you're into narratives, LeBron James performs the best in playoffs. So take those two things, combine them here with a 9.8K price tag, and he is just severely undervalued. One of my favorite superstar pay-up options on the slate. Yes, it is a horrible matchup, only projected to score 101 points, but it is supposed to be competitive. He's only 9.8K, and he should have the ball in his hands a majority of the game, projected 39 minutes. Playoff LeBron, fully activated here, comes out to a 6 point per dollar value, and is probably going to be one of the chalkier options here on the slate, assuming that AD does sit. Kyle Kuzma is also flying under the radar here a little bit. 30 minutes, 4.6K, averages over a fantasy point per minute, and just comes out to a 6.2 point per dollar value. Like I said, I don't love the matchup, but the value here does make sense with these two. Dennis Schroeder, 5.8K, is just a GPP option in my opinion, and the rest of these guys are just going to be GPP options because, as you can see, the price tags are very skewed here for just LeBron James, maybe Dennis Schroeder, and Andre Drummond, and then the rest of these guys are below 4K. It makes no sense to me. I think you have to get some kind of Laker value in tonight. Just without AD, the usage does get distributed between all these other guys, plus LeBron James, and I think LeBron James is going to be the guy holding the ball the majority of the game. Last but not least here, we have the Phoenix Suns. I have a little bit of love for these guys just because they're always under-owned. Like DeAndre Ayton has been playing about 40 minutes every single contest, and his price tag continues to not make sense. They need to get his price tag to about 8K. 7.4K is still undervalued in my opinion. If he is actually playing 40 minutes yet again, they're going to need him yet again here, and probably a huge disadvantage here down low for the Lakers. So love DeAndre Ayton. He should be scoring a little bit more here in this contest. 5.7 point per dollar value. Mikal Bridges has not been playing well, but the one thing I love about Mikal Bridges is he continues to put out those high minute games, and you know what you're going to get with Mikal Bridges in terms of minutes. You just don't know what you're going to get in terms of production. So as long as he's out on the court, I love him for GPP just because of the minute upside. I think now is the time to take advantage of this if you're playing a lot of lineups. Like 5K for Mikal Bridges on the surface looks a little overpriced, but it's the lowest we've seen him here in the playoffs. I would be overexposed. He only is going to be about 5% owned. So definitely could break the slate there with those minutes and that upside in terms of minutes. Devin Booker here projected 40 minutes. Just consider him a GPP play. Jake Crowder, Chris Paul. Like, we don't know what we're going to see from Chris Paul. If you look at him at a 6.6K price tag, projected 32 minutes, then yes, I absolutely love Chris Paul. We just don't know what we're going to get from Chris Paul. I think he's going to be playing about 32 plus minutes, but that's a big question mark. If he is actually playing 32 minutes, then yes, I can add Chris Paul into that pool. Love his upside there, 6.6K, and he actually had a fairly productive game last game, shooting 7 for 15, grabbing 9 assists. So do love Chris Paul if he can actually get to 32 minutes. But that will end my breakdown, guys. Let's go ahead and focus on my core and like how to construct these lineups, because I like to give you guys this format just because I want to show you where my exact head is at. I play a multiple amount of lineups. I don't just play one single lineup. I do this every single time. So I go a bunch of different directions in terms of constructing my lineups, so take this with a grain of salt. This is not my one lineup that I play every single time, but if I'm starting my lineups tonight, I'm getting Peyton Pritchard and probably near 100% of my lineups. You should be overexposed to Peyton Pritchard. Kyle Kuzma is another guy that is severely undervalued. I am starting my building blocks with those two guys. Pritchard, Kuzma show the best on their sheet. They are just way too underpriced, and you're talking about 25 plus minutes for a 3,200 guy that they will need a lot of production out of. Same thing with Kyle Kuzma. Like, they're going to need somebody else to step up on that Laker roster other than LeBron James. Speaking of LeBron James, I think he's another automatic lock. Those two guys are severely underpriced here without AD on the court. So LeBron, let's go ahead and add him. He's my favorite pay-up option on the slate, $9,800. I do love Kyrie Irving tonight. I think he's severely undervalued, and I do think even if they blow out these guys, Kyrie Irving could go bonkers, and I think at 8.8K, averaging 1.31 fantasy points per minute, I think Irving is a great piece. This is the part where I tend to go different in my lineup. Pritchard, Kuzma, and LeBron should probably be your starting core if you guys are playing a one lineup. Nurkic continues to be undervalued. I'm going to put him in there. He will also show a decent amount of ownership in my opinion. I think there's not too many obvious center options other than Ayton and Nurkic on the slate for the first time in a while. Covington is also showing a decent value play. Let's go ahead and add him. He's been playing pretty consistent basketball too. Kind of weird to say. And then the last two spots, like, you can go many different directions. You can go McCollum. Joe Harris is showing undervalued at 5.1K. Ayton and Tatum. Let's go ahead and put, like, in terms of chalk, I think that Ayton's going to be carrying some ownership. So let's put Ayton in there and see who that ends with. 4.3K for a forward. Blake Griffin, okay, that's GPP. Carmelo Anthony, don't really like the minute output there. Marc Gasol, TJ was talking about. Yeah, Marc Gasol could get some extended run there at 3.6K. Not in love with that build. Let's go ahead and back up. Let's go. You could go Schroeder. Schroeder would be another decent option there. You know what? Let's try Schroeder. Let's see what that gives me. Because he's going to be playing a lot of minutes too. He's going to get a decent amount of usage. And then Campazzo, Norman Powell's not a bad option with minute upside. And then Tristan Thompson, also not that bad of a play. Oh, we're looking for a forward. So yeah, I guess that would be Powell would slide in there. That's not that bad of an option. I want to try to mix and match these last two spots until I get something I love though. Let's go. We're looking for a cheaper forward. Bruce Brown wouldn't be bad. I guess there's really not too many options once you go a different route here. Let's try CJ McCollum. I do like CJ McCollum at 75. And then Blake Griffin again. So Blake Griffin's just loving my lineup apparently. I don't hate Blake Griffin. Like 4.2K. He has been underperforming, but definitely not that bad. I'm probably, if I had to go back and redo this lineup, what I would probably do is get rid of Kyrie Irving because that's the one contrarian play that I do like. But if I'm getting closer to cash, I'd probably start my builds with something like this. Pritchard, Kuzma, Covington, Nurkic, and LeBron James. So take that as you guys will. You guys can mix and match and get creative there. But let's go over some Prize Picks picks. My favorite entry on the slate. By the way, if you guys haven't signed up for Prize Picks, enter code using DGF for 100% matchup to $100. Everybody's been crushing it in the Discord. We put out our fantasy projections for every single player on Prize Picks, and Blake Griffin right now is showing severely undervalued. We have him hitting the over 69% of the time. Nice. 13.5 fantasy score is by far really low here for Blake Griffin. He doesn't even have to be on the court that much to hit that fantasy score, and without Jeff Green and Elise Johnson, I think he sees an extended run, and I just think 13.5 is very undervalued here for Blake Griffin. I think he hits the over by far. And that will wrap up my breakdown, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy this video. If you did, please do hit that subscription button, notification bell, and of course smash that like button for all of our future NBA content. With all that being said, have a great rest of your day, and let's cash.